This is PNC Roundtable.
Hello, this is Rick DiVore, Regional President for PNC Bank, and thank you for listening to PNC Roundtable. It's on this show that we tackle some of the region's tough issues with people who make a difference.
Now here's the PNC Roundtable.
Welcome into the PNC Roundtable. I'm Paul W. Smith, along with my co-host, Rick DiVore, Regional President, Detroit and Southeast Michigan, PNC Bank. We're into summer, Rick. There's a lot going on. I know PNC Bank is involved in an awful lot of things going on.
We have a lot going on, Paul. I've been seeing you a lot, both in the morning and at night, a lot of events. A lot going on, a lot of good going on in the community. I'm excited.
And more to come that we'll tell people about in the days and weeks ahead. Today, we get to spend some time with Mark Hackel. Mark, of course, elected to serve as Macomb County's first ever county executive. That was in November of last year. He officially took office the first of this year. Prior to becoming county executive, of course, he served as Macomb County Sheriff for a decade. He earned an associate degree from Macomb Community College, Bachelor of Arts from Wayne State University, Master of Science in Public Administration from Central Michigan University. This guy is an incredibly talented, successful hometown guy with a great deal of experience, and he backs it up with his education work too. He attended the FBI National Academy, a United States Secret Service Dignitary Protection School. He's participated in exchange programs with the Jewish Institute for National Security Affairs in Israel and the London Police Force. He's done it all, and he's still a very young man, and we're very happy to have on the program today, the PNC Roundtable, Macomb County Executive Mark Hackel. Nice to see you, sir.
Thanks, and I want to thank Brooke Patterson for preparing that for you to read.
He did put the whole thing together. Brooks has done a fine job working PR for you, and he's happy to have you. Hey, you know, Brooks is probably wondering in the same way that in a lot of places, when everybody in Michigan seemingly is losing population, Macomb County has had a sizable increase, and that's pretty doggone good. That's unusual, unfortunately, in the state of Michigan. But where do these folks come from that are coming to Macomb County, and what do you attribute this the migration to Macomb County, and we're losing elsewhere?
Well, we're making some natural assumptions, but what we're actually going to do is work with a demographer to kind of give us some specifics as to what we think really made people want to make Macomb their home. They made a conscious choice to move Macomb County. Tremendous population loss in the state of Michigan, Detroit, Wayne County. We saw that some of the growth in Oakland County was about 8,000, but Macomb County grew 53,000 people. We have now over 840,000 people in Macomb County, and the question is, why did we have so much growth when yet there was so much, I guess, loss of population in the state? And it wasn't because a major manufacturing plant moved into Macomb County. It wasn't because a new corporate headquarters moved in. There's something about the value proposition in Macomb County that made people want to move in. So the natural assumptions are possibly
lifestyle is a big
quality
part
of life.
Quality of life.
And so we're trying to focus our attention on not only economic development but community development piece. And I think there's a lot to offer in Macomb County, and I think that's why people made that conscious choice to make Macomb their home. And we want to work and try to figure out exactly how do we enhance that. Not so much want to force people to come to the county, but to continue to want to migrate here, whether it's from outstate or from even within the state or the region.
So with this influx of people, you kind of said that it wasn't because of a home office moving there or a new a factory or plant opening up. You've attracted new residents. Have you attracted new businesses, and are businesses thriving in your county?
Well, we're working on that. Again, what do I mean? We are the defense capital of the Midwest. There's no question about it. When we talk about the defense industry, 66% of the contracts that are awarded to the state of Michigan come right to that corridor in Macomb County, and it's called, the defense corridor. It actually kind of migrates up the Van Dyke area in Warren and up into Sterling Heights. I look at, and I kind of make fun of it when we talk about Airtropolis. Bob Ficano, he talks about it, he promotes it, does a great job. Yet when you hear it, you almost think that it currently exists. You would also,
wait a minute. You mean that thing doesn't exist?
That's my point.
Oh, my God.
So when I look at people like Brooks Patterson and Bob Ficano, I keep thinking to myself, if this was in their area. Brooks talks about Medical Main Street. He talks about the area where we talk about Automation Alley, and this corridor actually exists, but yet we don't promote it, we don't talk about it, and it's not just an economic engine or opportunity for Macomb County. It's for Southeast Michigan and for the state of Michigan. It is the defense capital Arsenal of the Midwest. If this were in Oakland County, if it were in Wayne County, I guarantee you Bob or Brooks Patterson would be promoting it and trying to make it the defense capital of the world.
With all due respect, we didn't have a Macomb County executive. We didn't have a person in that position to do that, and you're doing a heck of a job of doing that now. We did our broadcast, we did our show from the Arsenal not too long ago, and so people do need to be told these things.
Yeah,
they need to be reminded.
I think it was the first time there was ever a broadcast from that defense quarter.
It actually is the first time, and it's big, and we understand it's important for Macomb County. Therefore, it's important for Michigan. I guess we would say. Would we say that defense is more important in Macomb County than even the auto industry?
Well, I don't know that it's more important. Again, we do have a tremendous amount of, employees that are employed, about 8,000 people in and around that area in the defense quarter. But still, there's a tremendous amount of support the auto industry gives to employment in the region and in particular in Macomb County.
You see, Rick, this is the energy that he brings to this position, and frankly, our show is usually about a half an hour, but with the way he's answering questions, we'll be out of here in about 10 minutes. So
Well, I think you hit on something, though, and we're making a little bit of light of Bob and Brooks have done a great job of promoting their region, and I too welcome a strong county executive in Macomb County because I think there's a great story there. And I think Brooks has done a great job promoting Oakland County. Bob does a great job in Wayne, and there's a lot of good things in Macomb County. The reason we're so interested in forging a relationship with Mark, and we met probably the first formal time up on Mackinac Island, was because of the combination. He's new in the job, the growth story there, and then the defense industry. We have a specialty in the government contracting space since our acquisition of Riggs Bank in Washington.
Really?
And so it's something that I know that Mark was not aware of, and we probably, similar to Macomb County, probably don't toot our horn enough about some of our strengths.
This is interesting because there is kind of a correlation between the two of you. PNC Bank is very big and very active, and until this program and some of the advertising that you do, Rick, people didn't know. And for the same thing now in Macomb County, maybe one of our area's best kept secrets is the growth that you have there. 840,000 people growing when everybody else isn't. Is all good stuff, and the quality of life in Macomb County is fabulous. So I'm glad we're all together here, and we're talking about it. And you have, we kid about this. You've had for a very long time, Mark Hackel, our Macomb County executive now, a good relationship with these other regional leaders. I mean, we kid about it and we joke about it. They've always, frankly, they've always respected you and thought of you as kind of the Macomb County executive because it seemed that you were the Macomb County executive in waiting.
Well, I was very fortunate. I mean, as a kid growing up, I had a pretty good mentor. It was my father over the years, and just watched how he reached out, not just within Macomb County, but across the borders with his regional partners in law enforcement. But he got to know a lot of people that added value, not just to his life, but to the county itself. And so just kind of watching that, I was able to, fortunately, meet some of the people that he knew, and, I was able to meet Bob Ficano, Brooks Patterson.
They're so much older than you.
They're a little older.
30, 40 years older than you.
I keep picking on them, so it's like I got
I'm doing the picking on right now. I'll take the hit.
I'm not going to touch that one.
I got nothing to lose. But speaking of youngsters, Rick. But the fact is, honestly, as a kid, you were around because of your dad's position, and you did get inside with a lot of these people, and they knew you, so they were comfortable with you.
And I learned what I learned most about that is identify people out there that are going to add value to your life and help be part of the solution as opposed to part of the problem. And they are kind of whether they know it or not, kind of mentors from a distance. Meaning, I don't have dinner with them every day and hang out with them all the time, but anytime I pick up the phone, they're answering the phone. They'll be more than receptive to helping me and giving some guidance as to some of the issues that they've run across, be it whether it's banking issues, whether it's issues about economic development, or just issues about strategy and how to deal with politics. So I'm fortunate. I've been very lucky as a young person coming up within the ranks of the department, but more so as an elected official, as sheriff over 10 years, and then most recently as county executive, to have the availability of those individuals to talk to you directly and to give you some insight and honest insight. I couldn't ask for more.
Mark Hackel, Macomb County Executive, with us on our PNC Roundtable, along with Rick DiVore, Regional President, Detroit and Southeast Michigan for PNC Bank. I wanted to hear a little bit more, Rick, on something you touched on a moment ago regarding the defense corridor and what is going on, the defense industry in Macomb County, and PNC's interest in that because of an acquisition. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Riggs Bank, as you may remember, was the Bank of Presidents. It was in Washington, D.C. It banked every president going back, I think, to the Louisiana Purchase, believe it or not. I think financed that acquisition. Interesting real estate deal. But in Washington, they had a specialty in the defense and the government contractor space. And I will tell you that it's a tricky space. You cannot get a direct assignment of receivables. You get an assignment of claims, which means basically you get the cash, but you're not perfecting on the receivable. Banks can't come in and finish that contract on a new scope for a rifle or something. I don't think the government's wouldn't be real happy with that. So it's a space that's kind of tricky, and I would suggest that you need to either have an expertise in it or not do it, because it's definitely has some unique nuances to it.
So you acquired that expertise by taking
through
it
that
on
acquisition,
Riggs Bank,
right? And that in Washington, that was important to stay in that space and to demonstrate to that market that we were committed. So when we first had our conversation with Mark, our message was that we are familiar with this space, we understand it, we like it. We have over $600 million of commitments in this space, so we want to be able to help Mark and grow, and preferably grow in Southeast Michigan. So we bring something to the table. I think it's unique, and we'd like to help in Macomb County's continued growth, quite frankly.
I would think, Mark Hackel, that sounds like pretty good news, music to your ears.
Well, and again, there's about 500 companies in Macomb County that do defense contracting. I mean, that's pretty sizable if you think about it. Mm-hmm. But if you do ever have an opportunity to go down and kind of get a feel for, TACOM and the whole industry, it's actually quite complex. And I think I know where the word complex comes from. That complex is extremely complex.
Sure.
And so as we try to navigate through that, I've been very fortunate in working with people from the community college, our planning department, even the MEDC, to try to get a better understanding of what do we really have here and how do we help make it grow, and with the opportunities. And everybody is focused on that. So one of the main things we did when we first got into office, I was able to give somebody an assignment within our planning department specific towards dealing with the defense contracting and the defense work, to make it not just the defense capital of the Midwest, but the defense capital of the world, because that opportunity isn't just about Macomb County, it's about Southeast Michigan, and I think it's going to identify or brand the state as being the defense capital of the world.
And I have to tell you, when we were there at the TACOM celebration, had the pleasure and the privilege of being with General Stein, with you and with many others. I have to tell you the truth. I was not aware of the complexity of the complex, if you will, and that there were 8,000 people working there on behalf of this great nation of ours. 8,000 people right there on the campus working to defend this country.
Yeah, and that, again, I think what you'll find is there's probably about 50,000 if you actually do the multiplier effect, when we start talking about the 500 other companies that do contract work, so that's pretty substantial. And again, a lot of people didn't know it, so as county executive, I get an opportunity to shine a light on that and to bring more attention. But I tell you, there's a lot of people, even within the industry, and TACOM, General Stein, who are very engaged in trying to figure out how do we market this and even cluster it and tie it into Selfridge, which is another asset in Macomb County that gets little recognition.
Used to talk about it a lot more, it seemed to me, than we have lately. It just seems that way.
I think they only got talked about when there was the air show every 2 years, or then they're doing a BRAC study and they're talking about which bases they're going to be closing.
Yeah.
So, but again, that's the unfortunate reality. I got an opportunity just recently to work with the Army, and when I say work with them, it's their work. It was my pleasure to have an opportunity to do my first jump out of an airplane with a tandem dive. Boy, I'll tell you what, you talk about guys that know their business. Army strong, I get it. You're jumping out of a plane at 13,000 feet and putting your life in their hands, if you will, and landing right on Selfridge Air Base gave me a whole different perspective about Selfridge and the Army and our military men and women overseas and what they do.
God bless them.
Paul, I think that's one of the good tie-ins, going back to what we were talking earlier about having him in this position. If you think about it, I think a lot of people's general awareness of this space in this region is Selfridge Air Force Base, the Light Guard Armory, and they build tanks out in the GM complex or something. And I don't think we've done enough as a region to promote this asset, and I think that's one of the big charges that Mark is doing, and I think this kind of underscores that, because I think my understanding growing up as a kid is probably not much different than most people in this region. You know, that build tanks out there somewhere, and there's this Air Force base that I went out once and saw an air show. There's a lot more going on than that.
Oh, so much.
They
That's
do
important.
again. It's that's just I don't want to say minor part. That's a small part of what they do. I mean, everything that deals with our men and women overseas, the war fighters that are out on the front line, whether it's what they eat, what they wear, the type of housing that they have. Everything we're talking about is part of that contracting. It's not just about the tanks and the land, the ground vehicles that they have out there. There's so much that's done at that in that corridor there.
This is so off the point, but I got to ask you the question anyway, because having been out there at SACOM and the Arsenal and all that, you just used a term that the general used with me and a few other people used with me out there, warfighters. When did we stop saying soldiers? I mean, is there a... is that the politically correct way?
I stopped when they stopped.
I know,
so
but I mean,
I'm following their lead.
I know, and you do that very well. Good move. But I'm just wondering. I'm just wondering out loud. I mean, you're not the one to ask. I should have asked the general at the time, but I felt stupid. I thought, is everybody else calling them warfighters now? And I thought they were soldiers. I mean, you know what I'm talking about.
Listen, I tried to get away from cops and get people to call them peace officers. They're not following that lead either.
Well, it's another lost battle, I'm sure. Well, all right, I'll ask somebody sometime. I just realized. I mean, you notice that too, Rick?
Absolutely.
They stop saying soldiers. They start saying warfighters. And I go, well, wait a minute. Because soldier doesn't mean all men. If they were worried about the female soldiers, a soldier is a soldier. I don't put a sex on that, male or female. But warfighters is what I've been hearing. Okay, so I just thought if you
sounds
knew.
tougher. I got to give them that.
Warfighters?
Yeah, I like
well,
that.
Well, it is certainly to the point of what they're doing. Maybe that's an internal thing, and they don't want to be doing a lot of the social work that soldiers have been pushed into action doing over the last several years. Yeah. Maybe internally they're saying, well, let's call us what we are. We're warfighters. Maybe they won't call out the soldiers to direct traffic at an event if they're realizing what we are. We are warfighters. Yeah, maybe. You know, we talk a lot about and are proud of all that is about Lake St. Clair. You talk about Clinton River. These are major features for economic development in Macomb County.
One of the first things we did is, again, we talked about the defense industry, and we kept thinking about, boy, there's an economic opportunity with the waterway. Albeit Lake St. Clair is not identified as one of the Great Lakes. It is our Great Lake, and why I say that, meaning Macomb County and the region. It is because it is the busiest freshwater lake in the entire country during the summer months. And 31 miles of shoreline that we have in Macomb County, there's approximately 57 different launch sites where people have access. There's 44 marinas. I look at this in kind of comparison to what we talk about when we talk about the region here by land. Everybody wants to identify, what is our purpose? Macomb County will probably not be the home to major corporate headquarters. That'll probably be shared more.
Why do you say that? Why would that be?
Very, very difficult to do. In other words, unless they decide they want to come here, we're not going to probably be able to compete. It's already been established. Many of these companies already have their corporate headquarters in various locations. If you look, General Motors has a corporate headquarters down in Detroit. But you know what? We're home to the General Motors Tech Center. I mean, how much more exciting can it get? That's where all the technology and basin we have been for years. So not that we don't want to, but really that's going to be a challenge for us. But we talk about the urban setting of the city of Detroit. Macomb County is not going to be the urban setting. To change that, we'd have to take all of the major league ballparks. We'd have to have all the theaters and the arts centers. It's going to be very difficult for us to become the urban center. Although people ask me that, what are you doing about the urban portion of Macomb County? How could you turn it into an urban environment? You go overseas, you go outstate, people talk about Macomb County only if they're talking about Detroit. They want to know, where's your urban center? Detroit is the urban center. Chicago is an urban center. But when we talk about Lake St. Clair is the urban waterway of the Great Lakes system. Why do I say that? If you look around, there is nothing more exciting than being out on that lake, whether it's going to Gull Island, Poor Man's Beach, the opportunities out at Muscatmoot, Little Muscatmoot, Metro Beach. That is the urban center of the Great Lakes for water activity. People love to go out there. It is the most populated during the summer months than any other, and it is really an exciting place to be. What I want to do is expose that once again, market it, talk about it, and bring more value to it. But people got to touch it. People got to feel it. The problem with Macomb County is we've never looked at how do we identify and develop it. Right now, all of us can take a ride over to the west side of the state, go to Grand Haven, walk on a boardwalk, take our shoes off, and start running through the water. Traverse City. In fact, we can get on a plane and go down to Florida and do the same thing on South Beach. But in Macomb County, it's landlocked. There's not enough opportunity for people to actually touch it, feel it. But the minute they do, it's intoxicating. Now, I'm not talking intoxicating like Gull Island and Jobby Nooner, but I mean where people can actually get out there and have a good time and exciting. I'm telling you, it is the
you got 31 miles of shoreline. You ought to be able to have a space where we can go and do that.
And we're working on that with the local municipalities to try to figure out. Again, I reassigned somebody in our planning department specifically for what we call the New Blue Economy, and it's about the Lake St. Clair opportunities, but also the Clinton River. People want to go up and canoe and kayak in the Rifle River, the Osaba River. As a kid, I used to do it. Never realized the opportunities on the Clinton River. If you've ever had a chance, and we're going to make that a reality, to canoe or kayak on the Clinton River, boy, I tell you, we're going to make Jobby Nooner look like a kid's party, because we're going to have a paddle-palooza someday in the near future going down the Clinton River. And it's going to be
you heard it here
time.
first.
So that's right.
Macomb County Paddle-palooza.
Paddle-palooza. That's right. We're going to have a heck of a time.
Well,
so.
that answers one of the questions, Macomb County Executive Mark Hackel, and that is, how are you going to raise the profile of Macomb County? You're going to take some of these great advantages that you have that people have kind of enjoyed while they're there, but you need to tell the story to the rest of us.
We're going to pull those two pillars together, community development and economic development. Community development is the reason why people want to live there. People got to feel comfortable. They got to find a reason why they want to make something their home. Well, we want them to make Macomb their home. And we want them to tell the story. I want people, when they leave Macomb County to go to work, whether it's in Detroit, whether it's in Wayne County, Oakland County, or elsewhere, when they go on vacation, I want them to talk proudly of this region, and in particular Macomb County, because of the community development opportunities that are there. Why do they feel comfortable? 53,000 people moved to Macomb County, made a conscious effort to do so. Why? Because of educational opportunities, public and private schools, because of the infrastructure that's available there, because of the access to the lake and to the rivers. I want to enhance that, to give them more of a reason to want to say, you know what, this is the place that I want to live, and you know what, maybe others will start to follow as well.
And Rick, that's another opportunity for PNC Bank.
Oh, absolutely. And I think Macomb County is kind of a microcosm of the state. If you think of our biggest asset, and I think Pure Michigan is underscoring that, it's the waterway. And I think many times, again, this is something that maybe the citizens somewhat take for granted. I'm fond of telling this story. When I was in Pittsburgh, I had a book of northern Michigan, of aerial photos. And people would come in my office and think it was the Caribbean. And they would almost get in arguments with me about, oh, they can't be Michigan. And I think we, as a region, need to promote ourselves a little bit more. But I think even with some of the people that have been here their whole life, maybe take it for granted and don't appreciate what assets we really have here. And maybe leaving and coming back has helped me appreciate that more, maybe.
Boy, Rick, you're 1,000% correct. I mean, if you look at some of the photos of the Clinton River in the past and the actual lakefront itself, my gosh, they used to have Ferris wheels on Lake St. Clair. Mm-hmm. They used to have boardwalks. Why don't we have a Navy Pier out in somewhere in New Baltimore, or down in Jefferson, somewhere in St. Clair Shores, like they do in Chicago? Right. You know what? Those things used to exist? We had those. We had riverboats going up and down the Clinton River. I think we just kind of took it for granted, and for some reason lost the opportunity. But now what we want to do is revitalize that. We want to bring it back, not to what it was, but something even greater or grander than what it was before. And again, there are people that are very passionate about this, very excited about it. I put together a task force. It's a Water Resource Advisory Council. The foundation of it is water quality. That has got to be something that has to be addressed. We have to deal with that. But for the most part, giving access to people so they can touch it, feel it, get a true understanding of the value of it, and then, without question, I think you're going to see the investment and the economic opportunities start to flourish. They'll start to come across.
I say, Mark, you're right about all of that, and protecting that water is extremely important. And I don't just mean keeping it clean, but we're going to have to protect that water from people who want our water in the years ahead. That's True. What people are going to be going for. They're going to need our water, and you need to, in Macomb County, as we do everywhere around here, have to have a plan. We've already seen when we said we didn't want people, even from other countries, dumping their trash in our landfills, we couldn't stop them. So what makes us think that we'll be able to stop them when they come to take our water?
And that's where we need strong partnerships, and I guess leverage from our federal and state officials, and we're very fortunate. Those type of issues, I think you'll find it's not a partisan issue. I've been able to, fortunately, have great relationships with Candace Miller, Carl, Sandy Levin, Debbie Stabenow, and in talking to them about this particular issue, that is something that has been highlighted and discussed, and every one of them are extremely adamant about that as well. It's an area, though, if you think about it, it's a great economic opportunity. As you look across the country and you see all the different challenges they face when it comes to Mother Nature, in Michigan, we have such a natural resource and natural beauty. this would be a natural place for people to want to migrate, to bring their business, to bring their families. Yet we're the only state that lost population. I'm having a hard time understanding that. So we're trying to figure it out. I give the governor a lot of credit, albeit there's a lot of challenges. A lot of people are upset about some of the decisions he's making. He's making some very bold decisions. But one of the things that they continue to put an emphasis and effort into is this whole idea about pure Michigan. I think we as counties throughout the state need to identify what's pure about our counties and help brand this state and make sure that people understand the value of that tremendous resource we have, and that's the water that we have here.
I think it touches upon another theme, and one that, Paul, we've talked about, in fact, on this show last time, and you've talked about in the past, and that is that our young people now are starting, instead of picking employers, picking regions to live. And then, for instance, if you're going to go into the defense industry, you might pick this region as a place to live, knowing that if something doesn't work out in that employer, there's another defense contractor down the street. You're comfortable with that. Like Silicon Valley has been successful in that in terms of attracting people. Ann Arbor is definitely on its way to trying to become a place to live first, an employer second. I think that's what Mark is saying about Macomb County as well. If it can be a place first, and then I think then the jobs, the job part is like a secondary decision,
Mm-hmm.
much different than how we grew up. I think first it was always job first, no matter what. It could have been in, I got to pick a somewhere that's politically correct, but it could have been in Serbia or something. I don't know. But the issue is that I think this issue of water is our number one feature of attracting people.
Absolutely. Back to you mentioned challenges. What do you think, Mark Hackel, as Macomb County Executive, has been the most challenging aspect of this job? Part of it's got to be the fact that you're the first one, so you're not following a framework that's been set up. You can take what you've learned from Oakland County and Wayne County, obviously, but what has been the most challenging aspect of this job for you?
Identifying those that are going to be right there with me to help make this happen. And when I say that, it was no different than when I was sheriff. I had to put a staff together of people, and that being an undersheriff and the captains to bring on board that weren't dealing with issues from a political perspective, but that gave good, valued input into what we need to do. And fortunately, I've been able to identify through a process. And again, it's been a while. When I ran for office, I wasn't running for office, and people sometimes don't understand this when they say about the election. I wasn't focused on the election. I was focused on the direction. And what do I mean about that? I wasn't worried about winning or losing. It's a matter for the people to make a decision based upon 10 years of experience and leadership from the law enforcement agency, whether they trusted that I was going to be able to move forward and do something with the county as county executive. I let them take that opportunity and figure out whether they're going to vote for me. My challenge was, as I was going through the election process, who are the people I wanted to identify to bring on board as a deputy county executive, those that are going to be assistants, because they're going to be critical to helping me make this happen. And that's probably the most challenging thing I had moving forward, but I've been able to identify individuals. I'm fortunate to have a great team. Now it's a matter of trying to get the Board of Commissioners to have an understanding that it's a different form of government where the county executive is responsible for the day-to-day operations.
Is there a lot of resistance to that?
There was a little tension. And again, I'm very fortunate. I still have that great working relationship and ability to talk to them directly as well as my staff, but there's still this need to still want to continue to have some control over the day-to-day operations and decisions that are made, and that has changed. I will involve them, no question about it. But putting together a budget for the first time, trying to find office space for the first time, it was a challenge. But to me, those are secondary issues as opposed to how do we figure out how do we market this county, how do we get people to see, and where do we fit in the region as a regional player.
So then what would you say, Mark, would be the most exciting aspect of this job for you? We know the challenge, but is the exciting aspect overcoming those challenges or something else?
Probably the marketing piece. In other words, getting out there and then promoting what we have. Getting out there myself and identifying. Like you the other day, walking out to TACOM. That was in my backyard as a kid. I was born and raised in that area. And here I really, truly did not understand it until I took, the initiative to run for county executive and had some interactions and kind of went over there. And here I'm looking in our own backyard, this defense industry. I mean, it was an awakening to me. And to be able to talk about things that I have a passion for, whether it's Lake St. Clair, the Clinton River. I mean, there are so many assets in Macomb County. I get to be the guy that gets out there and promotes it, and to meet others within the region and even outside the region and have a seat at the table talking about how do we come together to make it better in Southeast Michigan or in the state of Michigan. That is one heck of an exciting opportunity, especially being the first person ever to get to do that in the county of Macomb in its history. I mean, it's historical. Sometimes it's kind of an awesome responsibility if you think about it, but my God, what an exciting challenge.
And Rick DiVore, I would suggest that our guest today is the right guy for this job, just by his enthusiasm, his experience, his love for Macomb County. He's the kind of guy we could be sitting across from a guy who I think if he wanted to be could be Macomb County executive forever. I have a feeling you have other aspirations down the road, nothing more right now other than being the best county executive you can be. But guys, obviously they're in good hands. I'm going to talk about him like he's not here. They're obviously in good hands.
Well, I would agree, and I enjoy the passion and the commitment and the drive, and I think it's important for the county to have somebody who has that kind of passion and drive, and to be really the leader in the county. So I would agree with you. I really think that Mark's job is very similar to mine in a way. I mean, he's working on brand awareness, and that's what I'm working on. And I'm not saying there's an image problem, but rather just an awareness issue.
There's a lack of a full brand awareness for PNC Bank and for Macomb County, because you both know, sitting where you're sitting, how much you have to offer. And you'd like everybody else to know that.
That's exactly correct.
That's kind of where we come in.
Right.
Well, and people used to identify Macomb County as that red-headed stepchild, if you will. You know, kind of there were 3.5 every time it was some kind of a, the Mackinac setting and everything else. And, now I get to liken it as, no, actually I get to be the grandchild, amongst the county three. So I had to throw that in there. I had to get it in there. Hey, I'm pretty excited. This is the first time, Rick, and I appreciate it. Usually I'm sitting here sharing microphone with Bob Ficano and Brooks Patterson, and I get probably out of a half-hour show, maybe 3.5 minutes of airtime. So, my God, I'm feeling liberated here today. This is outstanding.
You want to send Bob and Brooks in now?
No.
Yeah. What I want to know is Bob has been a sheriff and Mark's been a sheriff. Brooks was an attorney.
Thing, yeah.
So
He's
a prosecutor. Actually, it was funny because I talked to both of them when I was thinking about running for it, and Brooks was very much adamant. You need to do it. You got to do it. This would be good for Macomb County, good for the region, and I think he needed a partner, right? And then I went to Bob Ficano, and he says, "Listen, the best job you're ever going to have is being sheriff. You're out of your mind." He literally told me.
I remember him telling you that.
He says,
he would know.
He says you're crazy.
Oh, come on now. But you're loving this, right?
I really do. I absolutely miss certain aspects of the sheriff's department and the dealing with some of the investigations and the people that you worked with. But there's no question about it. This is one heck of a unique challenge, and I absolutely love it. And I have to say it. It's because of the team that I've been able to put together and the people I surround myself with make it exciting every day, because they're as excited and as passionate about trying to move forward as I am. So it's a very exciting team that we put together.
Rick, final word?
No, I'm excited about it. I do think that Mark has a very good feel. He's been a quick study on what to do. I will note he was inaugurated on January 1, so he does share that with the governor. He didn't waste any time getting busy. And from what I can tell, he's made a lot of traction in a very short amount of time. So we're excited for the region.
Yeah, we're excited for you and for the region. And we thank you, Macomb County Executive Mark Hackel, for being with us on our PNC Roundtable. Along with our co-host Rick DiVore, Regional President, Detroit and Southeast Michigan, PNC Bank. I'm Paul W. Smith. We'll see you next time on the radio.